Welcome to Throw Off the Lines, the podcast where we navigate life's changes, explore new horizons, and embrace the journey. I'm your host, Stephanie York, an executive coach with a passion for charting new courses on the water and in life. Ready for some total change? Let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Throw Off the Lines. This is Stephanie York, and I'm excited to be here because I haven't recorded any episodes in a little while. And it's always interesting to start. I do a bunch, and they're all kind of topics that are resonating with me. And as I go through my next month, it's just been wild how I started manifesting things, and they're starting to happen in my life. I don't want to sound all woo-woo about it because that throws people off. But the fact is, when you're focused on positive things happening in your life and you are feeling good about your life, because usually when you're manifesting or thinking about good things happening, it makes you think about more positive things. But full circle, as things happen in my life and I'm building on all of these episodes, I'm noticing that new things are popping up, not just for me, but for my clients, for my friends. My friend circle is getting bigger, and it's something I really, really wanted. I wanted community in my life. And I had so much fun making new friends, and I had so much fun learning about new people and kind of, still following in love with my life. So a topic popped into my head just as I was falling asleep the other night, and it must be something that's resonating with me right now. And it was about hoarding. It just was the topic of hoarding and the idea that, I don't know why, I was falling asleep and thinking about all of a sudden walking out of an office with the white cardboard box and all of my possessions in it and leaving a job. And what I left with was my personal affectations in this glimpse. And it made me think that when we leave situations, which I have left, which you guys all know if you've listened to this podcast, when you leave an abandoned ship and start over, you still bring this other cardboard box of things with you. And when you have that cardboard box of things, it's not always all really healthy, good stuff. It can often be the things that maybe made that situation not good. So my journey has been very solidly since the beginning of the year to sift through the cardboard box and get rid of stuff. And I think I may or may not have mentioned, as I kind of been traveling and going back to revisit my possessions, I got rid of half of my stuff when I moved out of my home. And then at the beginning of the year, I got rid of another half of my clothing. And it was really painful. And I mean, I still I'm looking to get rid of another half of my possessions because I notice again and again and again that I just am not using the stuff that I own. I'm just not using my things. And so I really thought it would be important to get back to this term hoarding. It just resonated, and it's still ringing in my head from a couple of days ago. And I thought this would be the next topic that I record. So this is going to be probably my last podcast for 2024 because we're in the middle of Christmas and New Year's, and I don't know why hoarding is an important one. There's so much out there about the holidays and about taking care of yourself during seasonal depression, which I just did that podcast and launched it. That was my last one. Go back and listen to it because seasonal affective disorder is really, really impacting people in January and February. So hopefully that episode can resonate with you wherever you are. I still use the tools that are in there that I shared with you. But in hoarding, I really... growing up, I never knew that my mom hoarded possessions, and we won't go into length about my mom hoarding, but I didn't know what a hoarder was. I didn't really know what hoarding was until I watched that show, Hoarders, which was horrifying and real and absolutely a mental health condition that, that involves a persistent difficulty of getting rid of possessions. And we may all know people who have way too many collections and way too many possessions. But I think true hoarding is on another level. So we're going to use the term hoarding here as a lighter topic. We're not going to go into the deep-seated hoarding issue that somebody who is in danger in their home. We're not going to go into that because that's a psychological thing that people need to deal with. But what I do want to talk about is kind of emotional hoarding. And emotional hoarding for me is, when am I hoarding feelings about something? Okay, I got kicked out of the job. I packed up my box. I'm really sad. I'm really depressed. I'm broken up. I have low self-esteem. I feel unworthy. I've been kicked out of the tribe. And at my age, I'm all of a sudden left floating and alone. And that's a lot of the feelings that I had when I left my marriage and when I've kind of thrust myself out here. And of course, why not make a podcast about it? Because, why not? I am really hoping that my own personal journey and some of the people I interview will help some of you out there. So emotional hoarding. Let's kind of jump into hoarding of any kind. And then I'll try and go through some of my possessions and what I've been doing about. It's not necessarily hoarding. Emotional hoarding is more what I want to talk about, but they coincide with each other. So I'm keeping shirts and things and, knickknacks and books and little collectible things that are very, very important to me emotionally. And when I look at them, I'm putting emotion into an object when the emotion lives inside of me. And some of that emotion is not necessarily a healthy way to deal with separation or a healthy way to deal. I'm not celebrating emotion. Instead, I'm tying it up into an object. And I'm sure that this topic could go a lot deeper. But what I want to talk about is some of the ways that I've been handling my emotions and my hoarding of my emotions and my hoarding of my possessions and what I'm doing about that. So hoarding is considered a problem if it interferes with your daily life. So going back to my mom, and not knowing that that's what it was, and seeing some of my friends and family members, if you are acquiring things or spending a lot of your time managing things, or you can't exercise because you have too much stuff in your house, you can't pick a shirt because you have too many, that's a problem. It's a problem if you're unable to use your kitchen or your bathroom or other rooms appropriately because you have too much stuff. So think about that. And then if it causes distress, if you're in your home, and they do say a cluttered, chaotic environment is symptomatic of a cluttered, chaotic mind. And I'm going to say that absolutely that can be a symptom of somebody having cluttered thinking. But going back to emotional hoarding, holding on to things emotionally, possessions, isn't necessarily just about having a cluttered or chaotic mind. It's about the attachments that you have to things and the unhealthy attachments that we have emotionally to objects and people in our lives. So if it's causing you distress, then that's one thing, but it negatively affects the quality of your life. Your relationships suffer because you have too much stuff. And, characteristics of hoarding are obviously clutter. If your items are in a chaotic manner, kind of just resulting in unmanageable amounts of clutter. I often think about clothes, and we as a society have way too many possessions. There's an amazing Netflix video about it. There was a great 20-minute cartoonish video made about 10 years ago. Maybe I'll put links in the show notes. We buy too much stuff. We're trying to fill a void inside of us for those things. And go back and listen to my first part 1 purpose episode. If you're not doing the things that make your joy internal and your purposeful life happy, then you're going to tend to try to blanket over those emotions of unhappiness, unfulfilled lives, if you're not doing service for others and you're only doing for yourself, you're going to tend to really lean towards consumerism and purchasing more things than you'll ever possibly need. And so many of us have bigger homes, and we feel the need to fill those up with more and more stuff. And if it's all over the place like clothes, you might want to go back through them. For me personally, when I look at an object, I see its value, what it cost me to buy it, and what it would cost me to replace it. And that's where my biggest hurdle is. So I may address that a little bit later on, in ways that I'm handling that now. The cost of elimination, it weighs on me heavy when I make these decisions. And so I'm sure it does a lot of people. Anyways, impulsive acquisition, another big thing. You're having a bad day. And, women always, it's funny meme posts about shopping therapy or retail therapy. And wow, that is digging yourself a deeper hole. So impulsive acquisition, I'm out and I'm in this fairy tale boutique store and it's rocks and gems and things. And I see this little pack of cards and it's dream cards. And, I want a dream. And I think I should learn more about my dreams. And you're impulsively purchasing that thing because somehow you feel like that possession is going to make you happy when, there's tons of websites out there on how to interpret dreams and you don't need those cards. You don't need to spend that money and you don't need more things. Nobody needs more things. I mean, if your basic needs are met, you don't need more things. And it can actually be very freeing to go the opposite direction and go minimalist. So that maybe is another episode. So I think that you'll see that you have a hoarding disorder emotionally as well. If you're lacking a theme with the things that you buy. So I'll go back to my mom, and she would see a stand-up clock, one of the ticking, clocks. And I know I'm not saying it right, but the big stand clocks. And she'd have to get one of these, a grandfather clock or whatever. And then all of a sudden she had several of them because they were at an auction and she had money in her pocket and it burns a hole through her pocket. And she bought one that had to get fixed and one that didn't have to be fixed. And as of now, probably a year and a half later, I'm not even sure she knows where it's at because she'll take the thing and then go leave it with somebody and then not pay for it. So she spent all her money on a dream of owning this big grandfather clock. And then it goes to somebody to fix it. And then she never pays the bill because she doesn't have more money. And next thing you know, it doesn't really go with anything that she has. There's no place to put this thing. So if there's no theme to what you're buying, or if you're obsessed with a theme, maybe you love red, white, and blue and stars and stripes, and now your entire home is just stars and stripes. If that makes you happy, great. That's a theme. But if you all of a sudden are buying, purple because you liked purple, and there's this purple grandfather clock, and I'm going to get that, but I have stars and stripes at home. And next thing you know, I've got a whole bunch of purple clocks. And then, I love owls, and I'm going to go buy, I've got owl pictures and owl clocks and owl calendars and owl figurines. And oh my gosh, I love clowns. All of a sudden, there's a whole collection of clowns at this auction, and I had to go buy all these clowns. Anyways, a lack of a theme in your acquisitions is going to be a definite sign to you. And then there's anxiety that you feel when you're confronted with having to get rid of them. I have anxiety going through my clothes because now I've culled it down by half twice. And I know I've got to get rid of more, but I just, I'm having a little bit of anxiety about going down even further, but I don't use half of the stuff that I have. And this is now I'm on a quarter of what I used to have. So again, we'll get to that later on. And then, the person, sometimes an example of having a hoarding disorder is that you're comforted by the possessions, regardless of what their monetary value is. And I know people, I've been around people who've been hoarders in my past, and they have something that's broken. It might be a figurine that's missing an arm, but they're very strongly emotionally attached to that. And it doesn't have any value whatsoever, but they don't care. They're just comforted by owning it. So, it's not easy to get rid of things, and it can cause a lot of frustration. And it's also the same thing for me with emotional hoarding. So my emotional hoarding, I'm thinking of, it's kind of like a defense mechanism where I'm kind of stockpiling sometimes negative emotions, and I'm putting them over here in a box, and I can't get rid of them because I'm so attached to them. I had really deep, dark feelings about where I grew up because some stuff happened there. And on the property that I lived in, I had some really complicated emotions with my father. And I still have some with my mother as well. And I was holding on to those. They were dictating some of my feelings in my marriage. And what I've been able to do is kind of discard those. They're in that box. I walked out of those relationships, and I have these little white boxes of stuff that are sitting in my mental attic. And I was able to unpack the box that had my discomfort and my emotional baggage with my father. And I was emotionally hoarding these feelings. And I think of emotional hoarding as, hey, every time I think about my dad, I'm going to get the box out and unpack it and dust off all the really bad feelings. And then I'm going to put them back in that box, and I'm going to put them back in the corner. And next time I want to dust them off, they're right there. They're ready for me. But you know what I did? I took the box, I dumped it upside down, and I sifted through, and I found the things about my father that I could love. I mean, he's passed away. And I found ways that I could enjoy remembering him. And all the junk, none of it mattered. And I'm now able to place love and joy on him. And I don't think about any of the things that happened that caused me grief, because it doesn't make any difference to remember that. I don't need to take that box out anymore. In fact, I don't even have a box for it. It just exists in my head that I remember him as a kind, loving, sweet man who tried his best in life. And he was just human and just it was his one trip around the planet. And it was the best he could do. So that's how I see my dad. There's no box. It just exists in my heart. And I was able to unpack a whole big giant box of emotional hoarding. And it also goes for my home, my area where I grew up in Ohio. I'm writing a book right now about my life a little bit. And in that, I had to unpack the giant box I was hoarding of feelings about my home and the things that happened to me there. And the area itself was pretty amazing to grow up in the 1980s. And I grew up on a big batch of land, and I had horses, and a lot of really terrible, horrible things happened, but a lot of really amazing things happened. And boy, I was blessed in so many ways to have the life that I had. And I think that if there's situations or things, places or people that you're emotionally hoarding something about, and you've got it packed in a box somewhere, make sure that you're in a good mental place. I've been doing a lot of inner work, as I talk about on the podcast, a lot of my own effort and a lot of my own purpose and a lot of, leaving drinking behind and emotionally, physically feeling better and taking care of my health and addressing my maybe loneliness and trying to get more friends. And I've got more friends, and wanting a purpose in my life. And now I've got purpose and manifesting things I want in my life. And it makes me happier and happier. I've been doing that work. So in order to get yourself to a place where taking out that emotional hoarding box doesn't take you down for a couple of days, you need to do the internal work. And I strongly recommend journaling, and I recommend healthy eating, healthy exercise, lots of good sleep hygiene, meditating. All that is going to help make you in a place where you can take your box out and dump it upside down, sort through all the parts, take the good parts, just put them back in your heart, and throw the rest away. But it's not easy. So the box is like your belongings we pack up, and then your dissatisfaction and your resentment and everything are in there. So be prepared if you want to do this work, that you both physically decluttering as well as emotionally decluttering. It's going to be hard, and you're going to bump into your feelings, but maybe record yourself. Like I'm recording this right now, and it's always cathartic for me to make a podcast episode. But while you're taking out that box of emotions as you're sifting through the memories, here's a great tip. Open up a Word doc on your computer, and I think it's hit Windows key and H, and a little microphone pops up. And then while you're thinking about what went on, talk it through and record it onto a Word doc. And then you're able to get it all out there, and maybe you can verbally go through, why do I feel so mad at my dad? He was just trying to do his best. Yeah, he hurt me, but I don't think he knows how bad he hurt me. Do I have to continue to hold that against him now that he's not even with us anymore? Nah, I really don't. It takes work. It takes effort. And if you're finding any of this is opening stuff up for you, I strongly recommend that you seek professional help. So think about emotional hoarding. It can be an unconscious act as well that you can have it can have a devastating impact on your life if you're unconsciously emotionally hoarding. A lot of us are doing it. I'm still doing it. I'm emotionally hoarding a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to probably unpack it and dig it out later on. But if you are unconsciously doing it, it can really, really make you unhappy in your life. It can lead to a number of issues like anxiety, depression, lost relationships, and for me, I was drinking a lot and not handling my emotions. For a lot of people, it's sleeping way more than they should. It's not going out and meeting your friends. It's isolating, and that's not a good way to live life. Not only can you not be happy, but you can't be purposeful. Whether your purpose is to write a book that helps people or to pursue an interest in Elizabethan literature, I don't care. Maybe you're going to create little stick figures using, popsicle sticks. I don't care what your passion is, but you can't pursue it as much if you're underneath a giant, heavy weighted blanket of hidden emotional hoarding. That's a whole sentence, isn't it? Anyways, some signs that you may, or someone may be an emotional hoarder is you're being more committed to holding on to sorrow than joy. And I find this a lot when I talk to people. They are so down. I was interesting. A year ago, I went on a couple of dates, and two different men who I feel were pretty successful both said, life is horrible. Life is full of pain. And they were very earnest about this and said that, life just is not good. You just try to find a little bit of joy when you can. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I wish I could give you a big giant hug in your heart, but I don't know you very well. But I felt like somebody who's emotionally hoarding is thinking that life is just full of nothing but bad. And trust me, I get it that some of you have really, really, really bad stuff happen to you, but there is a little bit of a decision process, and you might have a lot of those bat boxes full of stuff that you left those past experiences with. And there is a broken flower pot in there. There's a torn shirt. There's a handful of change, and all that stuff it needs to go. And you might literally be holding on to stuff that makes you sad and physical. Hey, here's a shirt from that past relationship, or here's a book that I bought to try to heal after that person broke up with me. And I'm keeping that book even though I'm better. Well, are you better? Because if you're holding on to sorrow more than joy, you may be emotionally hoarding. And then using a painful past to insulate yourself from the dangers in the real world. Oh, I get this a lot. As I'm meeting new friends, they wanted to get out of isolation, and some of us are talking about what happened during COVID. And a lot of people say, I'm so much more comfortable in my home. I tried to date, but all they were just losers and people who hurt me. So I'm not going to go out and try and find anybody anymore. I'm just going to be alone. And I'm not saying that if you were hurt through dating and trying to connect with people emotionally and personally, that you should just fling yourself back out there. First, get that box out, do the work. Again, I'm going to do a whole episode on dating. I just haven't gotten around to it. The hoarders one came out front first. So if you're isolating yourself from, say, dating because it was very hurtful, why not get out. You're isolating yourself from other people. You're isolating yourself from the joy of friendship and connection that doesn't have anything to do with finding somebody who can love you and partner with you in your life. And once you get out and you start pushing yourself past comfort and getting out of that comfort zone that's a protective layer, you start to see parts of yourself and work through tough things. Change is found through uncomfortable conditions. And the most growth is when we do push ourselves. So you may be an emotional hoarder if you're just isolating yourself from dangers in the real world because you got hurt and you're using a past incident to do that. That's a big giant white box full of stuff you left that job with. You have strong feelings and beliefs about acquiring and discarding things. You may be an emotional hoarder if you have stacks of things in a closet that have been there for years that you know you need to go through, but you can't bring yourself to look at. That's not healthy. And then having a strong emotional attachment to objects. It's different than if it's the Bible your grandma gave you, or the shirt you got from your dad and he's now passed, or your daughter. I have this little stone the shape of a heart my daughter gave me when she was 4, she found on the beach. And it's just a rock, but I really, really love it. And going through my stuff, that's one of the things I kept because she won't maybe remember it and nobody else will know what it means. But that little stone means a lot to me. But does it mean I kept 10 other stones she gave me? No, it means I kept this one and it represents all the stones she gave me. And this one little stone isn't too hard to keep. And, I think about all my possessions at the end of my life, which is coming sooner rather than the beginning. I don't want anybody else to have to go through my stuff. Okay, so there's a rock that's sort of in the shape of a heart. That's not going to be so hard for people to throw out. Nobody else is going to get the meaning in it. It was meaningful during my life, and it doesn't need to have meaning after. But if you have strong emotions attached to objects that are not unique like that are not special to a person, I have 10 white shirts and I only need 1 or 2 white shirts. Why do I have 10? Well, I love white shirts and I'm going to keep all the white shirts forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And if you have just white shirts that you're hoarding, you're probably hoarding some other stuff too. So just using that as an example, sometimes people get really attached to like books and things, and just think about that. So if you want to help somebody that you know is doing these things as well, we all know somebody in our lives. There's a couple of ways that you just need to respect their decisions. If you're not a professional and they haven't enlisted you to help them, then you need to respect their decisions. It's their life. You can't make somebody change when they're really dealing with a true emotional condition like hoarding of possessions and emotional hoarding. We are not equipped to do that. But if they ask for your help, don't take over their space. Be present for them and help them celebrate their successes. If somebody who's a hoarder, emotionally and physically, decides, I'm going to go through these 5 shirts, but you see the mountain of stuff that they need to go through, but they're deciding 5 shirts and I'm going to keep 2 and give 3 away, that is huge for them. If they have a stack of magazines, like 40 magazines, and they haven't been able to go through them. They wanted to keep some of the articles and they just have an attachment to these magazines. Trust me, I know they have a lot more stuff in their house that they need to go through. But if they go through, cut out the articles, stack them up, put a paperclip on them and put them in a file, that's a huge success. That deserves a cake. It's supporting them by helping them make better choices, but we can't force them into it. We can talk to them about it if we're worried about their behavior because we love them, but we can't do it out of our need to control their situation. You have to detach yourself from the feelings you have about how somebody else is acting and watch yourself. Are you being controlling? Because that's not good. That's not good. So as we enter the new year, so many of us have feelings about what's going on in our country and in the world, and there's tons of crazy news out there. There's only so much we can do about things outside of ourselves. So the one thing I know is absolutely true for myself and my clients. You cannot do anything about things outside of yourself if you're not taking care of things inside of yourself. So some key steps to take if you feel like you're emotionally hoarding, or if you feel like you're physically hoarding. I don't think I was a physical hoarder per se. I just had a big house and I had a lot of stuff because I could. And I now realize, being more mobile, that I had things I didn't need. I still have things I don't need, and I need to go back through it again. But one of the key things is, if you're really struggling, and I just talked about emotional hoarding, where something really bad happened to you from a relationship. Maybe you were in an abusive relationship and you barely got out, and you still have this box full of things that you can unpack at any given moment that are sorrowful and rob you of joy. Well, it's definitely maybe time to seek professional help. If you have a physical problem with hoarding and you have too many things in your house and your house is now toxic, and if you feel overwhelmed with it, definitely find a therapist that specializes in hoarding. And there's a lot of them out there. And I would strongly recommend that you go for cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Listen to the episode with Dr. Lisa Smith that I published about a month and a half ago, back in October 2024. We address a few things, but we talk about CBT. It's what she specializes in. And I found that knowing about CBT meant I could get healthy. And there's a process, and there's steps, and there's an end result. So often I was thinking about therapy as a never-ending series of just laying on a couch and talking about what was bothering me, and I didn't feel there was an end in sight. But CBT has steps that you follow, and that therapist should see if you're progressing through those steps. They are created and organized in a way to make you healthier. So definitely think about that technique and somebody to help you. I strongly recommend that you seek out professional help if you're stuck. And it doesn't mean you got to go to somebody for the rest of your life, and it doesn't mean that you're broken. We all need help. I've gotten therapy on and off throughout my life. So have a lot of people. And you don't have to stay with it forever, but it can help you just get unstuck and see a clear path. Sometimes we get so mired in our own moment, we can't turn the box upside down and dump out the stuff inside of it. So start small. Don't try to declutter your entire home at once. Choose a small area. Don't try to declutter your emotional hoarding all at once, because I don't know, you might end up in a corner curled up in a ball with your thumb in your mouth, or down the bottom of a fifth of vodka and wake up with a headache or a broken nose. And none of that is good. So start small. If you're trying to overcome feelings of, domestic violence, and you got out of a bad relationship, let's unpack one piece of that. Go on YouTube and look for videos for survivors of domestic violence. Go to a support group, find like-minded people, find forums online where people are talking about being healthier, and try to avoid those people who are stuck in the sorrow, but find the people who are trying to find their way to joy. Really evaluate the people you're getting information from, but start small. Don't try to be happy when you're sad. And if you're having a tough day, first focus on yourself. I'm a big fan of putting on music. I put on upbeat music, and sometimes if you're really stuck, go to a new location. So if I'm trying to go through my closet and I'm feeling really, really, really heavy, go in the kitchen, cut up an apple, eat an apple, and put on some music, dance around in your kitchen, because you can reset your brain. And your brain was ready to go down that sorrow path. But boy, oh boy, now we're going to go in the kitchen and we're going to say, you know what? I feel good about this decision. And you might not get anything done, but you got the box out. You didn't dump it upside down, but you got the box out. You had the intention. You took a first step. Feel good about that. It is enough. Showing up is enough. If you do this often enough, your brain gets used to resetting the negativity, and it does become easier. I'm living proof. Now, set realistic goals. Establish goals for decluttering your physical space, like removing a certain number of items per day, and then try to set a new goal to reach out to someone you want to communicate with. So, for example, I was down in Mexico traveling on a boat, and I was really isolated, and got really depressed about it. So I made it a goal to reach out to 5 people in my life every week. So once a day, Monday through Friday, I would call a relative or a friend back in the States, and I would reconnect and keep those connections going because they wouldn't reach out to me. They thought I was in another country. I was, but it was still really easy to reach me, but I had to make that happen. And for you, setting realistic goals might be, I'm going to throw one item away per day. I'm going to get rid of one thing a day. I'm currently going through that where I had big bags of all the stuff that was under my bathroom sink. And it's like old eye patches, old creams, old vitamins. And I threw away anything that was so old it was expired. But now I still have a bag of stuff that's purposeful and useful and costs, but I wasn't using it. So every day I'm going through my stuff. While I'm in the bathroom brushing my teeth, I'll open up the cupboard and say, okay, I haven't used you in a while, don't plan on using you, and I'm going to throw you away. I have an old big bag of just dumb hardware junk, and I'll go through that and I'll find something old in there and I'll get rid of it. I've got a shirt that I just really don't like, and I'll throw that into a bag and it goes in my trunk, and then I add to it, and then when it gets big enough, I'm going to give it to Goodwill. So, or anybody. So I love the one item a day. It's really keeping me honest, and it's really helping me declutter. And there's days that I'll go through a whole bag and shred a bunch of papers. And then when my room is cleaned up, I feel so purposeful. I feel so happy. I did something. Using a timer is a really good idea. So set a timer to help you stay focused and avoid feeling overwhelmed while you're decluttering. Set that timer for 1 minute, and that is okay. I'm giving you permission that if you're just starting this exercise and you're trying to think about heavy thoughts, I'll give you an example of my dad. I went through a really horrible time when he passed, and a lot of it was my own doing. And a lot of it was stuff that my relationship with him, and I couldn't open that box. I couldn't even open it. And then, I would find a moment in time and I would do a meditation, and then I would say, okay, I'm going to think about my dad, and I'm going to give myself a minute to think about my dad. And I would unpack my feelings about him, and I would remember his sweet smile, and I would remember how much he loved me when I was young. And I would remember the couple of times he said really nice things to me in my life. I hold on to those. And then after that minute, I would shut it down and I'd say, oof, I don't feel good about that. Maybe go for a walk or watch TV or just get on with something else. But as I slowly came back to it and I opened the box a little bit more often, I was able to then sit without a timer and truly unpack it all and realize that the big bad boogie monster in that box wasn't my dad. It was my memories and my attachment to the sorrow. And the fact that I always wanted to tell people my dad did this to me, or I feel bad about this person or that thing. Well, now, because I did that with that box, all of my boxes got easier. And I don't have to set a timer anymore to unpack them. I can just unpack them and go, is that a real feeling or is that bad? But I had to do all that other work to get to this place to unpack my feelings about things. And, a timer does help. Categorizing things. So if you're going through your stuff, put all your books with your books, put all your shirts with your shirts, put all your kitchenware. If you have old pots and pans, if you've got, I'm a hoarder evidently of glass pan baking dishes. I have 5 of them and I was giving them away at one point. I don't know why I'm compelled to buy them, but I use them a lot. So, I definitely have a hoarding issue with black Pyrex clear glass Pyrex baking pans. I do not know why. And so I had stack those up, donate them, give them away, discard them, call a friend. Hey, do you need this? And then sort through your feelings about giving things away. Or if you've made a bunch of stacks, and I've got shoes over there that I paid money for and they'd cost to replace, but I haven't worn any of them in 5+ years. Journal your feelings about those shoes. I have fancy high heels. Do I go anywhere that I need high heels? No. Do I want to go somewhere where I feel sexy and pretty and fun and special? Yes. Those shoes represented me wanting to feel sexy and fun and special and celebratory. And in 5 years, I haven't had one moment that required me to have those shoes. So those shoes are representative of me wanting a special moment. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick out one pair of shoes and I'm going to plan a special moment, whether it's going to the opera and I'm going to wear those shoes with a nice dress, or whether it's going to a really nice restaurant, making reservations, because I don't love the shoes. I want to have a special moment. That's what that pile of shoes. And if there's 20 pairs of shoes in that pile, you need to plan a special moment. And if you're not going to go and you don't feel compelled to go anywhere wearing high heels or anywhere special, why do you have the shoes? Get rid of the shoes. We're in our comfy time. Never has it been more okay to just wear comfy shoes and be comfortable in our clothes than it is now. Thank goodness. We're not required to wear all the entrapments or whatever. Probably not saying that right. So, start categorizing things and then ask for support. I've had friends ask me to come over and I'm really good at helping them declutter. And we just start in the corners and then the middle gets to be a big pile and then we whittle down the middle. And next thing you know, everything's organized, stuff is gone, trash is thrown away. But get help from somebody who you know is kind and loving and can help you make a list and can help you move through emotions and maybe stop you and have a sandwich, make a cup of tea, develop decision-making strategies, create a rule. If I haven't used this in a year, it has to go. And then maybe make a list of pro and con emotions. What's helping you and what's holding you back about your feelings. So feelings about my dad. Let's go back to my dad. Maybe there's somebody in your life that you're trying to get over. Maybe it's a lost love. It's somebody who didn't return or reciprocate your feelings and you can't quite quit thinking about them. That's happened to most of us. What are the pros and cons about the feelings you have about this person? What are the things that you feel about that person? Make a list. What are the things that person felt about you? And then what are those feelings you have are real? And what are those feelings you assume the other person had? Do you suspect or were real? And are you giving that person feelings and characteristics that they didn't have because you wanted them to have them? That's probably a whole nother podcast too. And then, address emotional attachments, explore the reasons behind your need to hold on to certain items and find healthy coping mechanisms to deal with those associated emotions. Definitely exercising and meditating and why are you still angry about what somebody did to you? And does it serve you? Is it really yours to hold on to, or is it someone else who did the hurting and you need to let go? My father hurt me, but I held on to that hurt as if I did it to myself. And when I finally was able to dump out that box and just see his face as that smiling, happy, loving person, I grieved for the relationship I didn't have with him. But after I got through that grief, all I have is joy and love for this man. And I used to tell people my father hurt me and I used to talk about it. And now, no, I just choose joy and I choose to remember him well. So we also need to keep in mind that there's very, very real physical way that are stopping you from thought or choosing about I want to move past this emotion. And if you have physical reminders of bad situations, it's best to get those gone because then you're able to address your feelings. So if you're physically hoarding objects that cause you grief, I know I'm using a lot of different words. If you're physically hoarding objects, get rid of them, and then you can emotionally handle it and open up the box of emotional hoarding that you have around those symbolic physical items. And then you really just need to choose a new mantra, which is, I can change. Change is proven. Oftentimes we're forced into it. I was forced to confront my feelings about my father because he passed and there was no longer a physical person that I could work through my feelings with. So get rid of the physical items that are holding you back and then get that box out of emotional items. And you don't have to do this with everything, but you could start small things. And then limit unnecessary purchases. I have a rule with myself that if there's a big ticket item, which is for me right now, anything over $50 that I want to buy, or actually it's anything over $25 because I just don't like to spend money. I have to think about it and then I have to give it a day, walk away from the store And then if I can't quit thinking about it, then I'll go get it because it has purpose and I can use it in my life. If it's something that I'm going to buy that I wish and dreamed I was going to wear, like a fancy gown, I am not allowed to buy it because I don't have anywhere to go in a fancy gown right now. And I don't really want to go anywhere in a fancy gown. So you don't buy it just because it fits you perfect or you love it or you want the dream of going somewhere fancy. You can't buy things for the life we want. You have to buy things for the life you have. And if you want your life to be different, you have to change your life. And so don't buy anything. I put myself on a moratorium because I was traveling so much and I would go places and people would buy stuff and I'd say, oh, I'm not allowed to buy anything. And just saying that out loud was so freeing. I didn't buy junk. I didn't buy tchotchkes. I really only buy food. And I make food for people as gifts. Or we'll go and have an experience in an escape room or something. I don't really purchase physical items any longer. And it's kind of something I say out loud when I'm with people. We'll go to a mall, we'll go to a store, we'll go to a little junk shop. And they'll be like, isn't this cute? Wouldn't you like this? And I'll say, oh, I'm not allowed to buy anything right now. I'm not allowed to purchase physical possessions. And it's so freeing. Try it out. It's really pretty cool. No, so important things to avoid. Keep this in mind. Don't judge or criticize yourself. If you are trying to move forward, do not beat yourself up. Get in your journal and start writing all the good things about yourself. You tried today. You started today. You thought about starting today. You looked at trying to handle this. Good stuff. Do not criticize yourself. Do not create a bar that you cannot reach. Do not set a goal that's unachievable. And I have an episode on change, which would be really good for you to listen to because I talk about SMART goals. And creating achievable goals is really important with this. And then do not feel pressured to declutter too quickly. It took you years to get all this junk. You do not have to get rid of it by tomorrow because it could really set you off for a downward slide that can sometimes be very unmanageable. So do not at all feel pressured to declutter. And then while people can be supportive, ultimately you need to make these choices of what to keep or what to discard. Obviously, if you're with a therapist and they're asking you to make stronger, bigger decisions because you're not making any, that you've got to listen to your therapist. CBT will make you push through discomfort. But, getting support and asking others to help you, do not allow them to make the decisions for you because that is not you doing the work. So, limit unnecessary emotions. I always have my clients use the 3 questions rule, and this is a really big deal. Question 1 is this my problem? And this is something I have my business clients do that are in charge of people, or my salespeople who are constantly trying to put out fires, and that's always a term they use to feel distracted, or when they are distracted, they say, I'm putting out fires, and it's just, it's funny. So, always when something comes across your plate and it can be, I'm having these feelings, say, is this my problem? And truly, is this something you have to do something about? And if it's an emotional hoarding situation, yes, you have to do something about that. If you're overwhelmed and you can't do it, please seek out professional help in CBT. There's a bunch of YouTube videos about it as well. You could start there until you get stronger. Is this my problem? Is somebody making me throw my stuff away and I'm feeling bad about it and I'm on this podcast because I'm being forced to do something I'm not comfortable with? Then no, it's not your problem. If you're not ready to do it, maybe your spouse passed and we're now 3 months later and your friends are saying, you got to throw all their stuff away. No, you do not. This is not your problem. If somebody else is pushing you to do something, maybe your spouse is mad about how much you're hoarding. Yeah, it's a real problem. It's causing a problem in your relationship. So yes, you should address it, but not because they're forcing you to and not because they're telling you to. But, if you're not compromising within your relationship, that's a whole nother can of worms. But, is this my problem? So if your spouse is asking you to do it, or you have to do it, then yes, it is your problem. The second question is, do I have to do something about it right now, right away? Is this an emergency? And the fact is, if it's going to take you more than 3 to 5 minutes to do that thing, it's not really feasible to do it now, especially if you have emotional hoarding feelings around this set of objects. And again, it could be a box of stuff you got from your mom and she's now gone, and you have to look at these figurines that have been sitting in the garage on the top shelf for 5 years. Yeah, it's your problem. You do have to deal with it. You know, you're now addressing and saying, I have to deal with it, but I cannot deal with this in 3 to 5 minutes. Not only is it emotionally charged and there's a box full of feelings in there, I don't have the time because I've got to go pick up the kids or I've got to make dinner. So we address it by saying, I'm going to schedule time to do this thing Friday at 7:00 at night. I'm going to put it in the calendar. I'm going to put a pop-up on it. It's going to show me at 7:00 on Friday that I have to do this thing. And then I know I'll have an hour to open up this box of figurines from my mom. And then I'm going to go through these other things that I've talked about on the episode, which is, how do I feel about this? Can I surround this with joy? Can I discard the sorrow or the heavy emotions? Can I only find joy in this box? And if I have 10 things in here, I'll keep one. And I'll put it somewhere where I can see it all the time. If I'm not attached physically to any of these things and I can hold joy in my heart about my mom or my spouse who passed or whatever it is, then I can get rid of the whole box of things because I have that joy inside of me, because that's where I choose to have it live. That's where the joy of my Father lives, is in my heart. I don't need to have any of his possessions because it exists within me, and I can unpack that little tiny box and it's just there like butterflies letting out. So I hope that didn't get too far down the rabbit hole, but schedule time in your calendar. So is this my problem? Can I do something about it right now? If not, if yes, do it right now. Which, if it's the box of figurines and you're like, I don't want any of them and I don't have anything attached to them, you can make a decision right then and give them away to somebody. But if you can't handle it right now, schedule time in the future to deal with it because you've decided this is my problem. And thirdly, if it's not your problem, pass it off to somebody else and get rid of it. So that's the 3 decision rule. Is this my problem? Decide whether it is yes or no. It's very clearly either your problem or not. Can I do something about it right now? Then do it. If not, schedule it for a later time. And third, if it's not my problem, I have to let it go. Pass it off to somebody else or let it go, because you can't hold on to worrying about everything. It's just going to make you unwell. So practice these 3 steps. Write them down. They're going to be in the show notes. So if you want to write them down again, this has really helped a lot of my people who are so stuck trying to process emotional hoarding. It really helps me a lot when I've had to do some very, very heavy unpacking. Again, the reason why I'm doing the podcast, and hopefully even one person. I do hear from people, this episode really helped me. I got something from that episode. I'm hoping that you realize that hoarding comes in so many different ways. It's physical, it's emotional, and hoarding of any kind is indicative of a less than purposeful life. And I do not mean that you can't have attachment to physical things, but they have to have meaning in your life. You can't just hold on to something to hold on to it. If you have too many of a certain kind of thing or too many things, it's really unhealthy for you physically to have all that stuff. So let's just jump on any big piles of stuff in your life, physically or emotionally, and make a plan. And in my change episode, I talk about a plan. And follow that plan every day. Start your day setting and intentionally following through with that plan. Revisit your plan every day. Start each day with, I like the journaling and the meditation and being purposeful and mindful, because that sets you up to look at the things in your life emotionally and physically and see them more clearly. If you're present and happier and centered, you're going to see that old box of magazines has nothing in it for you, because the internet has all the information on it. As anything in life, we're creatures of habit, and ignoring our bad habits and continuing to do the same things day in and day out are comforting. Even when they're bad for us, they're comforting. Our habits are 70 to 80 to sometimes 90% of what we do. So every day you walk past that box of junk, and every day somewhere in your brain you had made a promise, I'm going to get rid of that junk, but it has feelings attached to it. try some of these simple steps we talked about in this. Be very aware that making these changes are hard and sometimes really hard. And not everyone does it because of the struggle to actually change. I mean, if people were really good at changing, we wouldn't need to have doctors and others. We would all be doing really well. And we'd have things happen to us, but people are really, really unhappy. They're tragically more unhappy than they've ever been. And the more that we live better and better lives, the unhappier people are because they've got these habits that they follow every day. You get up and get a cup of coffee. You have the same thoughts. You go to the same job. You come home and have the same thoughts, and you have the same dinner and the same drinks. And then you wake up, you didn't get enough sleep, and you're watching TV shows and you're numbing. And it's so bad. So be aware that these things are hard, the things I'm asking you to do in my podcasts, and it's okay to struggle with them. And if you struggle too much, please seek professional help. Please. And go back to my episode on effort, go back to my episode on change. But these things, if you even do a little bit of them, can really help a lot. Look for my upcoming episode on habits. It may help as well. Journal, keep track of the positive changes you've made. Journal all of your feelings down, because if you can't afford a therapist, and in my deepest, darkest days of my life, I journaled, and I was able to go back and look a month or a year later and see where I am today is so profoundly further than the person who wrote a year ago. It's amazing that we're even the same person. So a journal is self-therapy, and it's pretty amazing. Also, good for you and congratulations for wanting to make some changes and listening through this episode. I really appreciate it. It's long, and stop and start if you want, or if you know somebody who might need some help, refer them to this episode. And, not everyone does want to make changes, and you should acknowledge you're wanting and trying to do this. It sets you apart from most people. So taking charge of your own life and building better habits and being present in this journey is what I feel life is all about. And we all need purpose and joy, and shake us out of those habits and let us seek change, because in change, in the discomfort of the new, is where brave is, and where joy is, and where love is. And sometimes there's so much information being flung at us that we get stuck and mired in not doing what we want so desperately to do. So I do feel that it's what life is all about. It's the joy of the journey, and you're on it. You're on it with me. And as always, if there's any episodes that you want to hear, feel free to send me a message on info@throwoffthelines.com. There's a message section on the very front page of the website that you can drop me a message and let me know how you're doing. I always love to hear people send me vision boards. They send me life plans. They send me efforts that they're making. Somebody told me the other day about a tool they heard on the Lisa Smith broadcast that really helped. An exercise that we did together where I was talking about crab legs. And, you never know where you're going to get that inspiration. You never know where you're going to get something to help you just live your life a little bit better. So until next week, I'll talk to you. I'll talk at you later. Bye. Thank you for joining me on Throw Off the Lines. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for future episodes and extras, and leave a review. Share it with someone who needs a total inspiration. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram and our Throw Off the Lines website. If you want to be a guest or have questions for the host, sign up on the website and we'll get back to you. Until next time, throw off those lines and live your best life.